Thank you for having joined us continuously. You're watching Smart 24 TV, and we promise to drive business together with you, from informing you in the business ideas or knowing the latest that we have got across the world and around the country. And we're going to be looking at health-wise what you have to know, and thereafter on how you can also recover with that. But what is government implementing for you? Now, the National Health Insurance has been enacted around there, and we are going to look at how government has called to fast-track enactment into law from the National Health Insurance. Now, government has called for the fast-track and enactment of the National Health Insurance Scheme Bill into law. How fast is that? According to the National Household Survey report by 2020, only 3.9% of the population have access to the health insurance. And speaking to the journalist Peter Echeru, programs specialist, health and human rights advocacy at the Center of the Health, Human Rights and Development, the implementation of health insurance cannot be there without law. Have a look.
Expanding financial risk protection and social protection through national health insurance is high on the national policy agenda. Uganda's National Health Policy 2 and Health Sector Development Plan 2015-16 to 2019-20, Health Financing Strategy 2015-25 focus on accelerating the movement towards universal health coverage by committing to a national health insurance scheme as a way to ensure households have equitable access to basic health services and to protect households from financial risk associated with high out-of-pocket health care payments.
Government put in place a health financing strategy with the hope of putting in place mechanisms that will help the health sector cope with a growing population, but also with a growing financing. Unfortunately, in terms of practice, things have gone really bad. One of the things that the health financing strategy anticipated was to have in place a national health insurance scheme that is practiced across the world. Actually, World Health Organization says that for you to achieve universal health coverage, health insurance is key. And like the statement has clearly indicated, that in Uganda we have only 3.9% of the population insured, and that is largely corporate.
Peter Echeru, a programs specialist, health and human rights advocacy at Center for Health, Human Rights and Development, CHAD, urged the government to prioritize National Health Insurance Scheme Bill, saying that the implementation of the health insurance can't work without law.
Our prayer is that we have in place a National Health Insurance Scheme that helps everybody when they have a crisis. Kenya, Rwanda all have health insurance schemes. If you look at Kenya currently, we just adopted theirs lately. Their health insurance coverage is at 18%. If you look at Rwanda, which started a little earlier, they're at 86%. And that means that when you go to a health facility, you're able to at least get a fair health service delivery mechanism within public health infrastructure. So we believe that it is important that government prioritizes the National Health Insurance Scheme Bill, because without law you cannot begin to implement national health insurance. There have been contentions. You remember Parliament passed the bill, it went to the President, he didn't assent to it, and it is back. And yet the process has to start afresh. So we are thinking that this is a critical issue that as a country, if we are to deal with our continuous problems of health financing, we need to deal with. Currently, by the way, government only contributes about 15% of health expenditure. Here we are talking.
Similarly, the Uganda Vision 2040 and National Development Policy 2, National Social Protection Policy, reiterate the need to establish a national social protection system which defines social protection to mean public and private interventions to address risks and vulnerabilities that expose people to high financial risk, including affordable national health insurance as one of the 7 priority interventions.
How much money is spent in health? The one you pay from your pocket when you go to health, the one your health insurer pays, the one the donors contribute, that all together constitutes what we call health expenditure. okay? Of that, you only have government contributing 15%. Remember, health is a social service, which is supposed to be a preserve of government. So if government is contributing only 15%, then you know that when you fall sick in this country, you're on your own. You sort yourself. Instead of thinking that, yes, I'll go to a public health facility. That explains why when you go to a health facility, you're unlikely to find a doctor. You're unlikely to find medicine. Because all these things have cost implications.
Uganda has a low proportion of people on private health insurance. In 2019, the Minister of Health estimates only 1% of the population have private health insurance. According to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics of 2016, Uganda Demographic Health Survey, 94% of the women and men aged 15 to 49 years have no human health coverage. According to Ekeru, the lack of national health insurance has as well led to limited access to blood, which has caused high levels of maternal deaths in the country.
That 42 to 43% of death of mothers in this country is because they cannot actually access blood. And you've talked to health workers who will tell you, when a mother needs blood and you don't have blood in the health facility, you just watch them die before you. And this has happened a lot of places. So for every 100 mothers that die, 42 of them actually died because they could not access blood. During the Christmas break, there were media reports that actually most health facilities didn't have blood. And this getting blood, processing it, and taking it back to health facilities require resources. Uganda Blood Transfusion Service has for the last about 5 years been running on a budget of 17 billion shillings.
So according to the National Household Survey Report 2020, only 3.9% of the population have access to health insurance. You can see the size, the percentage is quite small, only 3.9. And this 3.9 are majorly those of us who are working in formal employment, but the majority who are not in the informal sector don't have this insurance package. So our call is government needs to fast track the enactment of the National Health Insurance Bill into law. So once this is done, we shall be moving on a right path towards achieving universal health for everyone.
Reports indicate that hemorrhage continues to be a leading cause of maternal deaths, contributing 42% of all deaths reviewed. Of these, postpartum hemorrhage contributes 90% of all hemorrhage cases reported.
Because the reason some health facilities do not actually transfuse blood is that they do not have facilities for keeping blood. And so if you fall sick, they have to run maybe to the next highest level facility to look for blood, because you need a fridge to keep this blood. So we believe that incrementally, government needs to continue to allocate resources for blood collection, for blood processing, and for blood distribution in this country.
For this matter, therefore, government has been urged to consider allocating funds to the Ministry of Health, Uganda Blood Bank, and transfusion services to increase blood accessibility. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
Thank you, Bedson Mumbere, for that touching health report and story. Moving on, the UDP has received 1 trillion shillings to implement recovery of the economy as we also look forward for sustainable development. Now, the government of Uganda implemented a lift of the measures to support resilience and faster recovery of the country's economy. Apart from these measures, the government has injected 1 trillion shillings in Uganda Development Bank to support the economic recovery for the SMEs. The country's National Development Finance Institution approved the project worth 926 billion shillings, from which the 589 billion shillings has so far been dispersed into the Uganda economy to support businessmen during this pandemic speed.
While monitoring the response of the recovery program at the factory that manufactures grains and seeds in Lira, Patricia Ojangole, the managing director of Uganda Development Bank, hinted at the 455 billion shillings, which was extended to support the three key economic and productive sectors of primary agriculture, agro-industry and manufacturing.
Government indeed, true to its cause, put a total of 585 billion shillings in Uganda Development Bank as additional funding during that period up to now. As part of the measures, part of the funding was specifically to support the economy to be self-sustaining, ensure that we have adequate supply of goods and services, and undertake opportunities for import replacement because the pandemic had then disrupted global supply chain. So in line with that specific mandate, for the substantial portion of the funding that we got for that purpose, and I think it was 455 billion, Uganda Development Bank deployed that funding to three key economic and productive sectors of agriculture, agro-industry, and manufacturing.
In so knowing why they decided to support these three sectors, Ojangole said that the most of the applications that were received were from these three sectors and creates more job opportunities to the population, which increases the GDP of the country's economy.
You realize that given the structure of our economy, mainly agrarian, there are opportunities for agro-industry, which is really industrialization using agriculture produce as a source of raw material. Agriculture still employs the bulk of our population, and therefore the sector is very, very critical in the country's economic development. So even before we put specific focus on these sectors, when we were looking for business and which businesses to support, it is no coincidence that the bulk of the applications that you receive would be in agriculture, in agro-industry, in manufacturing. So that really represents the economic reality and the structure of the country. Even though the bank is open to supporting the other sectors, you still see a lot of opportunities in those key sectors. But also there has been a lot of government support to this sector in terms of improving the business environment, the policy direction and support, basically to encourage the private sector to participate in these sectors, because we believe these are the sectors that are going to create.
With such developments from the government and the money to support the recovery, farmers have expressed their gratitude because the rate at which they used to sell their seeds and grains were low, which was between 600 shillings and 700 shillings per kilo. But now it has increased to 1,000 per kilogram, as farmers say.
As per their buying of the seeds in villages, we have realized that these people, they're giving us some good amount of money, because when they go back to the villages, they normally give us at the rate of 1,000 per kilo. Yet in other areas, some people are buying at very low price. So TODCO is actually making the full development to farmers, in the sense that they are giving out good price to farmers. Before TODCO, in fact, there is what we call middlemen. They used to buy from villages, and during those days they used to give us 600, 700 there per kilogram. But with TODCO, they have increased the price to 1,000. That one is gate price.
When we are buying from the farmers, at times we have the farm gate price direct from the farmers at 1,000. And then when we bring it this way, we are also given some token of an appreciation in terms of commission. We are also benefiting. And even the factory, according to the materials we have been giving it here, there is a very great change. When you look at the silos, it's also there. The bagging is also there. Even other farmers from other districts, they're even bringing the good materials, like the sunflowers, and there is open market. So this is an achievement. Compare in the past, because the money, there is no any day when we come to the director office demanding for the money and say that there is no money.
However, farmers still face some challenges of limited metric tons, which may leave their seeds without being bought. So farmers cannot grow more than they sell, and also are still using the traditional way of cleaning these seeds.
We may have an interest of digging more, but there is limitation for that. because they say that this time we want the limit, the metric tonnage at this level, whereby some farmers can even miss to grow, because you cannot grow whereby at the end of the day some bags may even be left unbought. So those are the challenges. And then too, cleaning during the harvest. If the factory and then the Uganda Development Bank can get a way of improving some machine or processing it, but here we use the traditional method, we keep on beating. So all those are the challenges.
Due to poverty levels rising due to COVID-19 effects, Linda Agnes Auma, the woman representative for Little District, has urged her fellow leaders to guide the local people if they want to gain from what they are doing. For example, making money that can sustain them even in hard times, but not hand-to-mouth earning.
Here it is. So we as leaders, we have a very big task to talk to our people, not to sing about empowerment, about transformation. We have to be hands-on. Like right now, we are starting the first season. How are we preparing our local people? What type of crops are having high market value in our area? What have we observed as leaders that is productive, that we can advise our people to grow?
The government's support and commitment of strengthening the country's economy through the Uganda Development Bank is from 2022 and beyond. The focus will be in expanding the country's development and widening its reach amongst the underserved segments of the population to include the youth, women and SMEs. Babu Isa, Smart 24 TV.
Very well, and we're still on the budget framework for the year 2022-2023. Now, civil society organizations continue to urge government to strategically aim at how the economy will be recovering. But also, on the other hand, according to the national budget strategy for the 2022-2023 financial year, government is also looking at how continuously the country will be focusing on the recovery measures from the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this also involves working hand in hand with different organizations to attain this. Take a look.
According to a guide on tax incentives, exemptions are available for investors in Uganda. Uganda has been consistently attracting the highest foreign direct investment in East Africa by attracting between $250 million in foreign direct investment annually between 2010 and 2016, largely due to its stable and consistent macroeconomic policies. However, Patrick Rubangakane, a budget policy specialist working with civil society budget advocacy Salzburg, says that the way these exemptions are offered is not clear, where he called for a clear policy to guide tax exemptions and other investor incentives.
From these tax exemptions, but how are we monitoring it? Who qualifies to get an exemption? Now, when this came out clearly, and a key recommendation, because in the report they did make mention of one sector, for example, in the steel sector, there's a 10-year tax holiday for some companies. So there are companies who are benefiting from waivers in terms of import duty, but others are not. So now, this creates room for abuse and mismanagement. And the Auditor General was so clear, and in its recommendation wanted to see Ministry of Finance harmonize this so that it's closed. We have a clear framework where we get to understand how do you qualify for an exemption, what are the benefits that are there for you if you are to get an exemption. So that is our call. So we want to see a clear framework.
According to Rubangakane, they cited that the 2019-2020 Office of the Auditor General report, which noted that there is no clear policy guideline for the issuance management and monitoring of the various tax benefits and incentives issued by the government to different beneficiaries.
Our government has put in place several measures to attract investment. Key among it is by offering tax exemptions. As civil society organizations, we are really concerned about it because the way these incentives, the tax exemptions are managed, it's not so clear. This came out so strongly in the Auditor General's report of 1920, where the Auditor General highlighted that the issues of insurance, management, and monitoring of the various tax benefits in this country, it's wanting. That's an indicator that, yes, we have so many companies that have benefited from these tax exemptions, but how are we monitoring it? Who qualifies to get an exemption?
He notes that the absence of clear mechanism and framework exposes the scheme to mismanagement and abuse, with no mechanism to assess the impact of tax benefits, with some of the offers expiring without follow-up.
If you are a company operating out here and you don't know that some of these benefits exist, if they do exist, how do you qualify for it? So now that is what needs to be made clear. The ministry needs to come out and make it public and say, this is how you benefit from an exemption. And these are the people who have so far benefited from an exemption. Because without such a clear framework, it's sad. There are companies who are losing out and there are companies who are benefiting. So we want to see that harmony, that everyone benefits from. How will a local company get to know? Because most of these beneficiaries are majorly the foreign investors, because for them, as they make entry into the country, is one of the key things they negotiate, because we attract them by flagging those low-hanging fruits. Say, come invest in Uganda, these are the benefits. You're going to get exemptions here, you're going to get tax holidays here. So now, the local companies may not be aware about it. So if we are to promote the local companies as well, we need to make public known, sensitize them, so that they get to know this kind of benefit.
The Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group as well proposed for a provision of 100 billion shillings to capitalize the Uganda Development Corporation. Uganda Development Corporation is an investment institution established as government entity with the mandate to facilitate the industrial and economic development of Uganda.
Now, when we analyze the National Budget Framework Paper for financial 22-23, there is unfunded priority where UDC requires an additional 100 billion for recapitalization. So now our call is, yes, this is a good thing that government needs to really prioritize. They need to get that 100 billion and give UDC so that UDC can continue investing on their behalf, because once UDC is not adequately recapitalized, that means they're not in position to meet their obligations. Remember, these companies that UDC invest in are spread all over this country. A new company that government is proposing is having a sugar factory in Jinja, targeting the outgrowers, and that can only be achieved through UDC. And UDC, since they're the investment arm of government, they will invest money in that company, which in the long run will benefit the outgrowers, because we have been having issues of sugar.
Rubangakani said that the COVID-19 pandemic has a devastating impact on the economy, hence a need to redirect budgetary resources towards wealth, job creation, as well as industrialization, export promotion, and other areas with high returns on investment. He noted that these will play a key role in the speedy recovery of the economy.
That's our call. We want to see UDC receive money, because we are looking at the private sector as an engine of growth. They employ so many. Industrialization is one of the key issues we are driving in this country. So for us to industrialize from the government side, because government is now pushing towards setting up factories, industries in this country. And the only entity that is mandated to do that on the behalf of government
Bangakani has also made the recommendation to the Parliament's Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry. Committees of Parliament have since been receiving proposals from different government ministries, departments and agencies and private entities on the 43 trillion shillings national budget framework paper for the coming financial year. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
Thank you, Pedson Mumbere there. And that brings us to the end of SMB Smart Means Business right here on Smart 24 TV. But make sure you be part of the team every working day, Monday to Friday, from 7 a.m. to 11. And you can keep following the business information from Smart 24 TV websites, YouTube, regardless of the social media you're using. And in case you like my look around here, you can also be able to get the dress from Galilea Plaza, level 7511. You'll find Hafi there, and Mlongo will give you definitely what you want around there. Smart 24 TV, we continue to drive businesses together with you. I'm Rita Cabanyero. Make sure you follow me on different social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and also Instagram at Rita Cabanyero. Good day.